Working now, and so welcome. Now, usually my colleague Jamie Robinson comes in to deliver this one. Unfortunately, he's not available. He's the last minute thing that, but that's all right because I do deliver this one often as well. So you get me, but we also have Tony Bull coming in a little bit later. He'll log in and he'll talk about construction site, road safety auditing, temporary traffic management, and how we sort of think about safety in those environments and provide that road safety audit input. So let me jump into this one. So I'm going to start, I suppose, by talking about the difference between standards reviews and road safety audits. Now, I think we've done pretty well in really entrenching that a road safety audit is not a check against standards, and you've all been doing very well at answering that in the quizzes and in the different chats and comments that we've had. So, but I will talk a bit more about that. We're going to talk about the difference between design vehicles, checking vehicles, and how we, as road safety auditors, sort of think about this stuff and make decisions. We'll delve into swept path diagrams, sight distance bits and pieces. And then we'll do as we have done before, lots of the common issues we might find in audits of the detailed design stage. So we get lots and lots of documentation. And then we'll get into this temporary traffic management stuff. And yeah, that'll pretty much wrap it up, except for right at the end, I'm going to talk to you about prompt lists. Tony Bull will talk to you about prompt lists, previously called checklists, but now prompt lists, and how we might use them. And as I mentioned last time, we are now at a point in the course where you're going to get a couple of assignments in quick succession. The one at the end of today hopefully won't take you too long. It's all done desktop, and it's to start practicing finding issues in designs and then documenting those and writing them up in a nice manner. And then after next session, you'll be given your big assignment, which is to do a road safety audit on design at a site, near you. We've pared it down to try and keep it within reasonable time, but there's still a bit of work to do. So as per usual, pop your questions, comments in the chat. I'll be jumping back and forth between that and the slides, and I do have some questions for you, and of course the prizes continue to be rolled out. Okay, so standards review versus road safety audit. Really, somebody checking that you've conformed with all the standards and requirements can be very beneficial and improve safety. And so I don't say that that's a bad thing to do. Absolutely not. That's a good thing to look at. The audit, again, is that looking at what, regardless of meeting standards or not meeting standards, could present death or serious injury for any road user in the future. And yeah, that's probably one thing that you, as a road safety auditor after this course, really need to continue to communicate to people, because of course that word audit just conjures up in people's mind a check that you've conformed with documented standards and the like. So it's really not that, as you know. So we, as road safety auditors, need to start thinking about, okay, well, what vehicles has this design been designed for? What vehicles might go through there? Have we selected, or has the designer selected the appropriate vehicle? And usually they'll have some documentation to say what the design vehicle is, what the checking vehicle is, and then you can see whether you think that that is logical as a road safety audit from either your knowledge of the area or when you're on site looking at it, and you might see a lot of larger vehicles than they have said. We're also thinking about the speed environment, the design speeds, urban and rural, all these swept path diagrams, and I'm going to show you some of those, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the terms I was just using there: design vehicle and checking vehicle. Traffic data you might want, pedestrian cyclists. Crash history, we talked about, up to you. And sometimes any previous audit reports can be helpful. So when you're into the design stage, detailed design stage, road safety audits, for example, often there has been a previous road safety audit done on the project at some point. And it can be beneficial to have a look at that and see if any of those findings remain, if it gives you any intel on some changes that have happened because of that, and it can be useful. People often ask, should you use the same road safety auditor for all stages, or road safety audit team for all stages, or is it better to chop and change? And I don't have an answer or a preference on that. I can see advantages to each. Obviously, the advantage if a single road safety audit team is used for the feasibility stage, preliminary design stage audit, detailed design stage audit, but they get that continuity. They know the project well. It can be more efficient. However, getting different auditors, you will get different views on issues. People will see different things. They might have particular areas of expertise. So it's really up to you, or up to everybody as to their decision on that. So I mentioned these terms: design vehicle and checking vehicle. I'll give a prize to somebody in the chat who can tell me, what's the difference between those two things: a design vehicle and a check vehicle, a checking vehicle. Any, remember, you don't lose any marks for having a go. You could put that into the chat either to myself or to everybody is nice as well. Yes, I think some good things coming in there. I'm reading. I think Gary probably summed it up in quite a nice way there. So I'm adding Gary to the prize one. But yeah, the design vehicle is the common vehicle you would expect there, and you want that vehicle to be able to do everything within the envelope that you're designing and providing. The checking vehicle is a less common vehicle, and you're willing to let that vehicle go out of its lane to make a turn, or even sometimes mount curbs and the like. It's a rarer occurrence that vehicle will be there. So, for example, you might use like an 8.8 service vehicle as your design vehicle for an urban area, the garbage truck essentially. But you might want to do a semi-trailer as a checking vehicle in case, the removalist truck goes into an area or the like. That's probably a bit of an extreme one, but that's the general idea, that that vehicle should be able to get in there, but we're not going to make it overly wide. Now, a good point there that's coming, Gary. You want to check about what the checking vehicle is mounting and where it's going and where its swept paths are. Absolutely, and I'll talk about challenges with pedestrians, where they're storing and our vehicles. But people often get this idea in their mind that people haven't chosen a big enough vehicle and that it should be bigger. In some cases, that's a safety issue. In some cases, the other way around. If the design vehicle is far too big, you can sometimes get very large intersections and large openings to roads that can facilitate smaller vehicles going faster around curves, because you've got these big wide areas to cater for these large vehicles. So, I mean, designers are very good at this, okay? So usually they've chosen an appropriate vehicle, they've thought about all of this. As a road safety auditor, we're doing that, that extra check of the logic. So I'll show you a few swept paths shortly, and we'll explore this a little bit more. There you go. So design vehicle, and yeah, the design does not adequately cater for the swept path of the chosen design vehicle. So they may choose that vehicle, it doesn't do it, or the design vehicle chosen could be incorrect. And I think I mentioned these as well, didn't I? So encroachment into lanes, if you're going to get that frequently happening, because the design vehicle would have a potential problem. Pedestrian areas, Gary rightly pointed that out, conflict between vehicles, and then impact on roadside furniture, which is an interesting one in a road safety audit sense. We certainly point these things out if you think that that's going to have an issue. Is it going to directly sort of cause death or serious injury? Not often with these large vehicles, but it's not going to be a good thing at all. Okay, so Austroads has quite a bit of assistance for us here, and we've got some information about clearances at intersection between turning vehicles, the radii that are being used, and some of you will be sort of familiar with these sorts of diagrams, which we used to have as overhead transparencies and lay them onto designs and be able to check things. These days, that's all done in software. You want to ensure that clearance there. So 2 meters if you've got multiple turns, and it's the 1 meter between those. And here's an example where they've got that clearance. So it's only 1 vehicle turning in each direction, and they've got the minimum clearance there. But can anybody maybe type into the chat anything as a road safety auditor, if you're presented with this path diagram, that you might question? Anybody see anything that they have any concerns with? I'll give out some prizes, of course. Yes, so associated with the swept path, yes. Okay, so Gary's sort of talking about compound curves, so that increasing or decreasing radius. Kerry's popped in there, the one I sort of, Gary, I think, was on the same one there. It's so this purple one just doesn't look realistic, and then a few other people jumping on that bandwagon. It's not a smooth turn. So we've got some people who obviously can look at a swept path diagram and see these sorts of things. I see lots of others coming in along that line. That's right. So this looks like a very sort of strange way that the purple vehicle makes this sort of direct movement. And you can tell with the little arrowheads there, that's sort of a mouse click and an actual turn. It's not that smooth turn we'd expect. Now, this is sort of interesting stuff as a road safety auditor. And first of all, are you meant to be able to pick this stuff up? Yeah, you'd hope that in an audit team, you'd have people like a lot of you that can see this and identify it. And the second one is, well, how do we risk rate that? And what if we're not given the swept path diagrams? So these are all sort of common things that come up in road safety audits. At a detailed design stage, you would be requesting the swept path diagrams. You're not expected as an auditor to run your own swept path diagrams, but you want to see that it's been done, to use an appropriate vehicle, and that they look right. Now, occasionally, we do get somebody to run our own swept paths. And it's hard for me to define when, but sometimes we just go, oh, there's something fishy about this. I want to run our own swept path diagram. So there's no defined thing in road safety auditing that you have to do it or not. If they say that we have swept path diagrams, I mean, that's a red flag straight away. At a design stage, they should have those and have those available to you. So that's the kind of thing. Like, why? Some of you are probably asking, why on earth would somebody present that? And that is, something that was presented. Sorry, I'm just having a read of the chat there. Yes. So a good question came in there about, are these concurrent right turn phases? And so in this one, it's, new upgrades, development, a developer and the, traffic team trying to show that it can work. Now, there's going to be costs associated with making this bigger, so you're able to do that. But maybe, yeah, split phasing could be an opportunity. Could be an opportunity there, but it's not. So Jason's sharing a free swept path program from Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads, TMR, up there. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So on this one, you've got some things back to that design review versus standard review. A couple of examples I just thought would pop into this one. So these are going to be road safety audit issues. There we've sort of identified that one. We've obviously got some challenges out here with property boundaries and pedestrians and where are they going to go and the like. That's all looks like still to be determined. The idea of the services running through a private property, that in its own right is more something you talk about in a standards review. I can't think of the way to make that a road safety issue. Thus, it's not our role to put it into a road safety audit, but you don't want that to happen. So yeah, I thought I'd put that in as a little example. What we got here? If the geometry of the intersection could not be modified to ensure the right turn phase, clash, we can control the intersection with traffic lights. If the traffic lights are used to control the turning vehicles, is it still a concern from a road safety audit point of view? Well, it's a good question there from Sina. If you had the signal phasing for this, and they were doing split phase, so one vehicle goes and the other vehicle goes, in theory, you don't need to put that as a road safety audit issue if you don't see that as a reasonable potential for a crash. And intersections operate like that. So yeah, you're right. You wouldn't need to, but in this case, that was not the case. And plus, we would like to then see that actually just drawn properly. Why are we fudging swept paths? If we do that, we're going to have them overlap, and then we're going to have the phasing diagram, which will say that's movement's going to happen, the other movement's going to happen. Okay, I might keep moving on here because I want to talk a bit more about some other path diagrams, and we'll make sure we've got time for our break as well. So here's an interesting one where we see an entry into a proposed new major bus depot interchange. And you can see here that the long rigid bus has been chosen here. Thinking about the speed of the turn is important as well, and what they've decided to use on that. But you can see here that this vehicle, to get around there, has to track over where the pedestrians will be storing. Now, the swept parts do have, they're a little bit on the conservative side, but even still, there will be situations here where those vehicles will be going over the curb. So that's a particular issue, and that's the kind of thing we'd be wanting to point out. Yeah, so is there a hard and fast rule to determine what appropriate design check vehicle is? No, not that I am aware of. So that's a good question. If anybody knows of any hard and fast rules, I'd be keen to know, but it's the common vehicle is your design vehicle, the largest common vehicle, and the checking vehicle is, yeah, uncommon. And I don't know whether there's a particular trigger like you count, but yeah, that's all I can really add on that. But this one is interesting because the vehicle that will be going into this area a lot, being buses, certainly has to be a design vehicle, isn't able to make this turn. And you can see the other one is that the conflicting left turn, right turn, and again with the phasing, you know that's going to be an issue. Now, this one, you're probably going to rate a lower risk because that crash is not going to be as serious, but it's certainly very concerning, I suppose. I think Gary's popping in some information in there which can assist in that decision. Thank you. Okay, and you also, yeah, can see this when they're built, and we're getting lots of tracking over curbs and areas, and it's just it's not a good process, and sometimes impacts on the road furniture and the services and the like. But as has been rightly pointed out, the bigger concern is when it tracks over areas where vulnerable road users will be waiting. So pedestrians could be waiting there in those areas, or it's a point where bicyclists store, and unfortunately we do see death and serious injury occurring with these pedestrians in that area of the swept path of the large vehicle, or bike riders as well. Bike riders are, yeah, quite a common one where the truck driver just can't sort of see that area and makes their turn and sweeps over. And there you can see some road furniture. Now, the as a road safety auditor, again, these sorts of things, if you see road furniture in an area you think is going to be flattened when they build it, like this one, the link to a road safety issue. So to say the giveaway sign's going to be knocked over, thus people might miss the intersection, thus there will be a crash, to me is just too many steps. It's too long a bow, right? So what I'd end up doing is just labeling this as probably a to note in the order. Say, the swept path doesn't work, it's going to encroach in this area, and you've got road furniture, to note. The designer does not want this to happen. The project manager does not want this to happen. But for us to sort of, yeah, it's just too many steps to get to a crash for this particular issue, if that makes sense. Now, there is the crash as such, where the vehicle has hit a sign. But that to me is not a road safety issue, because a large vehicle will knock over that sign and continue. Nobody's going to be killed or seriously injured in that particular incident. There's issues potentially from there, as I say, a bit of a long bow. So just to note, and then that's a thing I should note, is that not everything in your audit has to have a risk rating. Sometimes you don't have enough information to give it a risk rating. Sometimes it's not directly onto a death or serious injury that you can sort of point your finger at, but you really want to tell the project manager and the designer about this. And so you might use at the point you would usually say the risk rating, you can just say to note. Okay, so another thing that we get into a lot of, I suppose, thinking about, or designers do, but the auditors then are thinking about the sight lines, the sight distances to other vehicles, to road users, to the pavement, and all of those things that could restrict sight distance. So the first thing I suppose you'd wanting to do is calculate your appropriate sight distance, or what the guidance suggests you have. Now, there's lots of little nuances in that, and things that you've selected as reaction times and 85th percentile speeds and these sorts of things. So you can, in the detailed design phase, ask for some of that. And again, it's you sort of just checking, does that accord with what you believe is logical? And we might be thinking about SISD. So, prize, what does SISD stand for? I don't think it's written on this one, is it? Yeah, let's see if somebody wants to pop that in. Yes. Okay, Gary in there very quickly, and Alison quickly followed behind. Gary's written it all in capitals. You shouted it. I will give Alison the prize though, because Gary's already got one there. Yeah, so safe intersection sight distance. So doing those sorts of calculations and checking, are we conforming to that? Now, interestingly, on safe intersection sight distance, there's some people gravitate to some documentation in is it Australian standard? But anyway, it talks about well, essentially shows that a dynamic visual obstruction, so something that can move, is not considered in your sightline calculation. So parking is a really fascinating one in this space where we have these side roads, and if you're creating parking or the like, then we're going to have this sort of issue arise. Now, as a road safety auditor, I don't get caught up in the nuances of what people are saying. I see this as an issue, and we report it accordingly. It's not for us to be finding obscure bits of things that show there is a standard or a guideline or something somewhere that says that this is not a particular sightline impediment, because of course it is. So, very quickly a car can appear there. So I suppose question to the group is, what kind of things could we suggest as road safety auditors if we see in a design that there'll be parking that we think restricts the sight distance? Yeah, this is Jamie's photo, so I'm not actually 100% sure where it is, but it may be in Essendon. But let's, what sort of things can we do to lessen this risk? So we've identified it as a road safety auditor, and now we're saying, okay, well, what can we do about it? So Duncan wants to bring the hold line forward, and we've got, it must be a username, Menace, who's looking to remove some car parks. A few people want to get rid of car parks. I'm seeing not yet. Kerry's gone with some curb outstands. Reading some good stuff in here. Yeah, so I think everything people are saying there is worth putting forward. And I think that's a good demonstration of why some auditors in some situations provide multiple options to lessen the risk. Because yeah, we can lessen this by, yes, removing some of those car parks, or getting the hold line moved forward, or signalising the intersection, or slowing vehicles on the approach, or a raised intersection, or, you know, and the list goes on as to ways we could do this. And if you just simply say remove the parking as your only option, any of you that have worked in local government or with local government know some of the challenges associated with that. It may be that they just simply can't do that. So I do like some of these other ideas in order to say, you can sort of put them in preference order as well a little bit. I think the curb outstand one there is good if you can do that to get more sight lines open. I would like to see some bit more parking restrictions, but the curb outstand I think is a particularly good one there. So thanks for all those good ideas that came in. And it is, as road safety auditors, worth ensuring that you have your head around the different sight distances. Now, Austroads does a really good job of this and explaining them, and also giving you assistance in the calculation of the different sight distances. So there we've got some definitions there to help you, but you can obviously get these from Austroads. But stopping sight distance, approach sight distance, entering sight distance, manoeuvring sight distance, minimum gap sight distance, overtaking sight distance, and you know, they're all based on essentially the same formula, and it's just you're trying to ensure sight lines sometimes for you know, different things like approach sight distance, you know, looking for the pavement in particular from certain eye heights, and yeah. Okay, I'm going to keep ticking along here. So for rural, remote, unsealed roads, these areas can be road safety audited the same way, the same process we do, and we're thinking about a lot of the same stuff. Obviously, huge expanse of this network and a very variable condition of the roads, and that's factored into our road safety audit thinking. The bulk of recommendations around these areas are associated with the signage and guideposts, warning signs, and the like, because yeah, well, you can't do pavement markings, of course, and do different sort of local area traffic management style treatments. Although you can do sort of small patches of sealed road with traffic calming if you have a particularly sort of unique situation. We see a bit of that for the for different, I suppose, residential areas with some of these unsealed roads where there's been some different things happening in that space. But yeah, same process, same auditing, same logical look. What could cause death and serious injury? How do we lessen that risk? Yes, the condition of the road sometimes does the traffic management. Yeah, always an interesting debate on unsealed roads. I'm slightly off topic here, but whether or not to put regulatory speed limits on unsealed roads, because, for example, take this road, it's going to be a default 100 km/h regulatory speed limit, and you know that is inappropriate to go 100 km/h on this road. And so you say, well, why don't we speed limit these 80? The thing is, though, that 80 is not appropriate during a lot of the time. And so what we end up doing is, trying to remind drivers about the drive to conditions, rather than putting a regulatory speed limit, which, the fear is that people will see it as a target, and actually, if there's no sign, they might be going at a reasonable pace, but they see the sign and they actually increase their speed, to get closer to what we've just said. But because a default speed limit doesn't need to be signed, it is, so it's really interesting. And then you'll see a lot of those end 60, end 60 signs or something like that with a black circle. And the idea there is that you're not actually saying 100. You're trying to say to the drivers, that's the end of that zone, and now just drive to the conditions. I'm torn on this one because, I don't particularly like initiatives in the public road environment that are intentionally trying to, I suppose, deceive in a sense. But I completely understand that idea of people seeing it as a target and potentially upping. So Len has made a wonderful comment there, a prizeworthy comment, I think, on that one, to know that Tassie has a default 80 km/h speed limit for unsealed roads. They were going to go even bigger than that and do a default 80 for the whole of the island, and then raise the speed limit on roads that they believed had the appropriate infrastructure, which is a very much what Sweden did. They went with a 70 km/h default speed limit and raised the major arterials that had the appropriate infrastructure and left the very minor roads at the default lower. So that is a very, it's a very good way to operate if we can do it. But at the moment, we have so many challenges with the speed limiting and management of speed, and as we saw in Tasmania with that initiative, the political interventions and the like, it took it, but they got the unsealed roads at least to 80, so they don't need to sign it in the way that the rest of Australia does. Okay. Right. So some common issues associated with road safety auditing intersections, and some of these I've talked a little bit about, but at the design stage, we want to be thinking about all of these as well. Some of you have done your research assignments on that, and then we'll be getting feedback to you on those. Thanks to people who reached out for a little bit of assistance as well. That's what we want you to do, and we're able to point you at a few documents and then bits and pieces. But I'll just jump through these very briefly. And so see-through effect, I think we've talked about well, that visual deceit, and trying to pick that out of a design is a fun little challenge, and I think you're all up to that task. So stand-up angle is basically if you have a slip lane or the like entering a main road, it's the angle that we sort of enter in at, or a road entering in. And if the angle is too much, we know that we increase crashes because drivers can just, it's a very hard thing to turn the head, and we know that people will just make a call on this, and it's sometimes not a good call that they make. So we try and square that up a bit. Off-roads has specific angles, 70 degree there, that you would be expecting. So I'm very much either of get that more squared up angle, or the full acceleration lane there for drivers. Looks like Tony's just joined us there. So I'll keep moving along, but we'll get to you shortly, Tony. Oh, I think Tony's
Sorry, we'll just get
Tony's taking a phone call, it sounds like. If I can, I'm not sure I can mute Tony. Anyway, I'll keep going. I'm going to mute Tony. Okay. Crossing arrangement, site. So okay, site distance of signals is a good one. And back of queue issues sort of associated with that. So often we look at the signals, everything's good, you've got good sight lines to the signals and everything like that, but you've got to start to think, well, what about if we get a bit of a queue of traffic? Are approaching drivers going to be able to see the back of the queue in time to be able to react and stop? Danish offset crossing. Somebody's doing their assignment on that. That's this is an interest. It's kind of a minor thing, but it's another one that as auditors we love to sort of pick up. So the Danish offset, the Z crossing, is that in the median you've got some area to walk, and this is the way you want to see it. So you've got vehicles going that way and that way, because as a pedestrian goes in, they will walk facing oncoming traffic. So if we have it the other way around, they are not facing traffic as they cross. Now, is this the biggest road safety issue we have? No. Is it something that we prefer to get right? Yes. And so you would no doubt sort of point it out in your auditing if you picked it up. And sometimes they do it because of particular desire lines or services, and they can't really get around it. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything here that sort of stands out that might need some more explanation. If anybody sees anything on there they're not sure about, I'm happy to talk you through it. Transferring an issue to another location, I think, is another important one. So we can be very focused on the particular intersection we're dealing with and restricting turns and the like, and it improves safety at that location. But of course, people will make their own way to where they want to go, and we may transfer the issue. How far and wide do you go with that? There's no definition. There's no rigid way to do that. You need to logically think through what this could change. Is that the same as a two-staged crossing? No, I mean, a two-staged crossing could be within a Danish offset style crossing, or could just be a refuge island or some sort of second, breaking up of the crossing task. And Joseph's asking, what's the difference between the two? For the Danish offset, so, well, Danish offset crossing and a Z crossing, they're the same thing. And the one that I was explaining there was the just the direction that a pedestrian will walk in the middle. So pedestrian comes in and they walk that way, and so they are having their back to traffic as they cross either direction. Or if we have them come in here and then walk this way, they're walking at facing traffic. So they make that eye contact. So that's the difference between the two. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so good questions come in here around drainage. Yeah, so the fact that an area does not drain, the water doesn't get out, or the water goes into inappropriate places, in its particular own right isn't a road safety audit issue. It could be, If it's going to pool in areas where vehicles are braking or on the road and there are these sorts of issues, yes. And also if it's going to make pedestrians walk into other areas. Do you do drainage analysis as a road safety auditor? No, you do not. Like you don't do that. But if you can see with your knowledge that there will be areas of pooling or the grades aren't, appropriate to get the water out and these sort of things, as Duncan's sort of mentioning in there, you can point them out and link them to a road safety audit, a road safety issue with, yes, aquaplaning as it's put in there, or as I say, changing people where they'll walk or the like. So if you happen to be somebody who, looks at a design and you go, wow, this is going to cause really bad issues for this adjoining property or something like that, it's not a road safety audit issue. You may like to just give that as a note, if you can think it'll help, but you don't want to have, these things clouding your road safety audit report, because we're just here for the road safety issues. Okay, and so they were intersections. Here's some for mid-block locations. So roadside hazards, I think, is a very big one. We've talked a bit about that. We're thinking about the barrier types, and there's a lot of detail in specifics about barrier types and what you can do with them, and flare rates and offsets, choice of barrier type, modifications to barriers, and challenges that bring. So really, I can't sort of stress enough that if you're engaged to do a road safety audit that involves roadside hazards, barriers and the like, you've got to make sure you've got somebody in there that's a barrier type person who's done a lot with barriers and can think about barriers to assist with that side of things. You still, if you're not a barrier expert, can provide value and ask good questions and think about issues, but there is a lot in that particular one. Visual to seed, line marking, these are all ones I think that are fairly obvious. Drop off, skid resistance. So short merges and blind merges. So we're thinking sort of, where are we having these merge points? Where are we having overtaking lanes? Where are they coming back in? Are people going to be able to see it? Is it just over a crest or the like? And we know there's some potential challenges around those. That links in a bit with vertical alignment issues. So I think that's probably okay. Boulevards where trees have been purposely planted within the median. Yeah, so that's a really good question to bring up, because road safety auditors are often pulled in at these different stages to assist with that determination. So, Jackie, great question, prize there for you. You need to sort of make these judgment calls. What is the speed environment going to be on these boulevards? What sort of features do we have to assist reduction in the likelihood of the vehicle leaving the road? And then thinking about the severity of the incident. So my sort of preference there is for us to either go to the point where we slow the boulevard down to a point where we're fairly confident there will be very few vehicles that leave the road, and if they do and they strike a tree, it will be at speeds that are within tolerable levels or close to tolerable levels. Or we move to a system where we are providing the barrier system, so you can still have the trees, you've got barrier systems there, and I think we can do a bit of a better job of making them less visually intrusive barrier systems, and have them painted, or we can have some timber-faced guardrail systems that are quite sort of visually pleasing, that have been approved for lower speed environments. So we can sort of work something around like that. The other one that I have suggested and use, yes, it's came right in, as I was about to say it, high profile barrier curve is one that I do strongly encourage people to look at in these environments, and have suggested for quite a number of those boulevard audits that that have been done, where it's a barrier curve, it's taller, and it has been crash tested for redirection. A normal barrier curve really doesn't do that redirection. It does a little bit of it, but people mount that very easily. A high profile barrier curve sort of sits up and has a bit of that shape to it, or there's a few different shaped ones. It sits quite high up as a curve, and it will redirect the vehicle. Now, it does then leave a decent step. So you've got to think about where your pedestrians are crossing these boulevards and the like. But I really do like high profile barrier curve, and have used it as a sort of road safety audit suggestion, where you understand the designer's constraints and challenges, and it provides an option there. Now, I can talk to you about a bit more. In Victoria, it's sort of 60 km/h environment is where you sort of max out on your high profile barrier curve. And there's some standard drawings available, and you can have a look at those. I'm not sure what other jurisdictions do in the high profile barrier curb space, but it's something worth having a look at. Where can you find the crash test data for the high profile barrier curve? So jump on a Vic Roads website and plug in high profile barrier curve, and there is some there's some good standard drawings and some information about their use, and I believe within that they refer to the crash tests that have happened. But if you don't find that, Alison, shoot me an email and I'll dig something out, or I'll talk to some people who will definitely know that. Okay. Great. All right. Well, I think I've kicked us along there nicely and given us perfect time to have our break. And in 4 minutes and 30 seconds, we'll be getting back into it with Tony Bull, who's going to talk to you about construction site road safety auditing and a little bit in general. So 4 minutes, fill your coffees up, and we'll get back into it.
Hey, Ken.
G'day, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Ah, good.
I keep meaning to call you. You're on my list. I'm in Adelaide at the moment, so I'm running around.
Getting all over the place.
Sorry?
You're getting all over the place.
The restrictions have eased and I'm able to hit the road again. Now, you got your camera working there or not? Or
no, it's I can't get access to with on and off.
Okay, let me do something on that. I think this will. I reckon that might help you.
There we go.
There you are. We can certainly see you now. Wonderful. And that will probably have given you the ability to share your slides.
Let's see. Share screen. Make sure I get the right screen. Oh, maybe I should have put it in.
And I see some thumbs up. People are back and ready to jump into it. But I'll introduce Tony Bull. And so some of you probably know Tony because he's a legend of the industry, around the temporary traffic management and safety, and is somebody who's been with the Victorian government assisting in a whole variety of things, and has a particular passion for safety around work sites, and has utilised that passion and his skills and knowledge in that area to go out not just in Victoria, but across Australia and across the world, assisting in improving these areas through standards and guidelines updates, through road safety auditing processes and practices, and also just through the hands-on projects and pointing things out. So I said to Tony a while back, oh, can you come and present and the road safety audit course on this aspect? And he said, yeah, great. How many days have I got to present? It's quite, and he said, oh, we're going to cram it into sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, 40 minutes. And so what he's done is actually recorded a longer version with lots of extra information, and we've uploaded that. So what you get is Tony live, giving you a very distilled version, and then lots and lots of extra stuff for you to watch if you're working in this space or you've got an interest in this space, and we really encourage you to do that. So over to you, Tony, and I'll feed you questions as they come along and jump in here and there, but over to you.
Thanks very much, Ken. Hi, everyone. I can't see any faces on the screen, but as Ken said, any time through this presentation, please, if there's questions that come to mind, let's try to discuss them at that time. We don't have to wait to the end to have questions thrown at me. So we're happy to look at anything in that space as we move forward. And as Ken said, yeah, I've been with well, we're now Department of Transport, Vic Roads, and previous names. And my current role, well, that's actually changed at the moment. In, let me see, 15 days' time, I'm actually taking an early retirement package from the Department of Transport, so I didn't quite get to 39 years, but it's been a great journey working for the department or for Vic Roads. The opportunities I've had over those 38 plus years has certainly provided me with a real insight, interest, and as Ken probably pointed out, a bit of a passion towards road safety, especially at construction sites. It's a high risk activity. It's a high risk environment for not only the workers but for the travelling public. And from the onset, I'll say it has such an important role as road safety auditors to undertake an audit at or road safety audit at a construction site. So I see that the role you guys could potentially play in this space is so important for the continued safety of our workers and the travelling public at those sites. I've been lucky enough to be on a couple of committees that have taken me around Australia, the Standards Committee and Austroads, all with the traffic management theme about them. I've also been on 3 international projects in Dubai, Philippines and Indonesia, again working with the road safety at work sites, and it's been that's an interesting journey, looking at the different levels of abilities and access to devices and alike, signs and alike. I think it's probably a testament that we're leading the way here in Australia, and particularly even in Victoria. And I'll apologise to those in other states, but and I think across Australia we're very committed to this, and it's been shown to me that all the other states we're certainly heading in the same direction. We're trying to, and that's what the Austroads committees have been about, is trying to get that consistency not only in our own states but across Australia and New Zealand, bringing them into the picture as well. So they're really positive projects and positive outcomes, getting that consistency across Australia and New Zealand. I've done a lot of training in road safety audits and traffic management alike, And I've been in the maintenance construction industry for a long time, and around asset management. And that email and phone number on the screen will probably only last for another 2 weeks. So after that, I'll supply my new details to Ken, and how he shares that, I'll certainly leave that one up to Ken. So looking at the road safety, and this is a car park in my office here in Warrnambool. We have dots that depict the way where the car should park, and you look at those dots, and I always thought, yeah, no, this is just 90-degree parking, but is it? It could be 45, or it could be 90 based on the dots. So, and this is a result of what people saw that were customers that were coming to the office. One vehicle saw it as 90-degree parking, another one saw it as 45-degree parking. And it's just this is probably an example of who installed those dots felt was going to give the message, but in the end it didn't. And as I said, it's just an example, but put it on a different scale at a roadwork site where you're managing thousands of vehicles a day, looking after 20, 30 workers on a site, that if we don't have that message of our signs and devices giving the correct information and the message for where the traffic needs to travel, avoid any conflict areas where workers might be, where machinery might be, where we're storing materials and the like, that we ensure that that message we're giving is the correct one, so that the travelling public can get through our work site safely, not only for themselves but also to ensure the safety of our workers. And and at the end of the day, that's where we really need to sit as road safety auditors, that we're looking at that job in its entirety. We're not just looking at the signs and devices, we're actually looking at the operation of the site. And I think that's a really important part, that this isn't just a compliance check. It's not just a surveillance check. This is an audit, and we're looking at the road safety aspects. Is any of those safety requirements to ensure that, as I'll keep harping, you probably hear me say this so many times, the safety of the workers, the safety of the travelling public, is anywhere through the way we're managing their site, that safety is being compromised. That's what we need to look at. We need to look at the whole big picture. And and let's. I've talked about the travelling public, and just in the chat box, tell me who we have. Car operators, truck operators, whatever. Who else in our travelling public do we need to be mindful of? And and let's get down into some smaller details as well.
Okay, so we've got some things coming in there. Cyclists, pedestrians, the disabled, the workers, vulnerable road users, tourists. Getting a good bunch there. Everybody, Armand said.
And Ken, look, I that's a really great list of who we need to consider, and and the vulnerable road users, the cyclists, the pedestrians, people pushing prams, kids on bikes and the like. That they're the things that we need to ensure we are looking after, and a great response from the group, and that's a space we need to get into, that we're looking at all road users rather than just the people with the motor powered vehicles. Great response. So within traffic management, and again, I mentioned this on the previous slide, but in a road safety audit for traffic management, yes, we need to understand the codes, the standards, the traffic management plans. And there's another question we might throw to the group. what's the difference between a traffic management plan, a TMP, and a traffic guidance scheme, a TGS? And we hear these acronyms and terminology used all the time in our industry. I've got the TMP in place, I've got the TGS in place. What is the difference between those two?
Okay.
As such?
And now, Tony, this is a good group. They're very active and they get in with their answers quickly. So we've got Wayne's come in with the TMP is full doc. The TGS is just the basic plans. TMP is full documents. TGS is just diagrammatic representation.
I like that.
Yeah. We've got a few people who have said that at about the same time. The TMP's got all of these different documentation. In TGS is just the plan. TGS is the traffic management setup. TGS is included in the TMP.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. There should be a chocolate there, Ken.
Okay, Cena's on that for chocolate, and I mean, I think quite a few there could have got some prizes, but we'll just pick that one.
And again, great answers, and I think, as you said, they're a very informed group by the sound of it. But it's to understand that we have to develop a traffic management plan to understand what the risks are, to what we need to manage. We need to understand if there's shopping malls or shopping strips involved. Is there schools? Is there other influences on the way we need to manage that site? Have we going to be able to give access to emergency vehicles if required? What are the emergency contacts? Who needs to be contacted? Who needs to be informed? The plan looks at the whole picture of us and the way we are going to be disrupting, managing, looking after a particular construction site on our road network. Out of that, we will put together the traffic guidance schemes. And yes, they are part of the plan, and that's why I picked up on that. And the traffic management plan will also talk about staging. What signage do we need at a particular stage of this construction? There might be 7, 10 different stages within a particular construction. We're going to be working on the left-hand side. We're going to be working on the right-hand side. We're going to have to close a footpath. There's going to be all these different stages that all should have their own traffic management plan. Me getting it wrong. The traffic guidance scheme. There will also be what signing is required after hours. So it's really, or when workers won't be on site. It's really important that, if we're doing a road safety audit, that you have access to those documents to understand how this is being played out, how it's being managed, and are they able to manage it from the daytime to the nighttime. And again, with a road safety audit, it's really important that you undertake that daytime and out of hours or nighttime, especially nighttime audits, because signs and devices in the daytime can look very operational, but at nighttime, they may not have their reflective bands might be dirty, or the sign face might be dirty, have grime on it, and you can't see it under headlights. So it's looking at all those different aspects. Yes, we need to understand our codes and standards, and now the Austroads guidance material, but we need to make sure we're covering all of those safety aspects. And as I just mentioned, the Austroads guides to temporary traffic management. And look, I'm just not too sure whether all states have taken these on as their replacement of their codes of practice. I know in Victoria we're still in a transition period, so we've still got our code of practice, but also we're referencing these guides now. So they're 10 parts, and as it says on the slide, there's copies of these on your USBs that Ken is sending out as part of the packs. So and these guides and while there's a lot of information, he really is breaking it up into the different parts and the different ways that we should be managing the sites. And we got the field operation, the traffic controllers, the processes. It just gives some sample layouts as well. They're not to be used. They probably will get used, but they shouldn't be used. We should be designing our own to meet the needs of a particular site. So just be mindful, if you do come across just photocopies out of the Austroads guides, that they are meeting the requirements of the site. That'd be my first question. Are they meeting the requirements of that site? And then we get to site, and all intentions are always good for the protection of the workers and the travelling public. But we get these instances like this where unfortunately they got it wrong and got it wrong badly. Just the messaging for the people who enter this work site. You've got a 40, then on the other side you've got 100. The confusion here is, if they accidentally left that 40 up, I can still travel at 100. Is there a traffic? Probably not, because the 100 sign is up. You get all these conflict messages to the driver that they're not going to follow. So therefore, the site is not going to be safe for all those users. This was a power core site. It was on the Hamilton Highway. It's going back a few years now, but I went to, and the message out of it is, I went to the site, talked to the site supervisor. I said, do you realise your signing is incorrect? He said, don't talk to me. He said, talk to the traffic guy. And that should not happen. The owner of the site is the principal contractor. And yes, most times they will subcontract out that traffic management side of it. But at the end of the day, that principal contractor is still responsible for the site. And they should be making sure or ensuring that the traffic management company is making their site safe. And the reason why they didn't have enough signs on board, and they received incorrect training, which is disappointing in itself. They said, if you haven't got enough signs to cover up existing signing, put the lower speed beside the higher speed, and motorists have to comply with the lower speed. It's not going to happen, and it's not a law either. So there was some issues with training, there's issue with implementation, and there's issue with the safety of everybody. So it's probably a basic mistake or a simple mistake, but its consequences could have been quite devastating. Excuse me. So why do we do this? Why do we undertake a road safety audit at a construction site? I'll just open all those up. Roadworks, they typically involve a change in speed environment. They will change the road driving experience. There will be conflicts, confined road space. And so we're actually changing the environment that could potentially cause issues, conflicts and the like. So, and this is why, as traffic managers, we need to ensure that we are managing those changes in this environment. So we do reduce the speed. We do put up barriers. We make sure that we are lessening the chance, or mitigating, not lessening, we should be mitigating that potential of conflict within that site. Traffic arrangements during roadworks, they can change several times. And as I mentioned about the traffic management plan, we need to have those different guidance schemes to resemble the conditions that we've changed to. And we've got to make sure that what people have been used to driving through, we have changed that. So we have to make sure that they are aware and follow the safety requirements that we put in place to ensure we're keeping everybody safe. And a lot of times, and this goes back to that previous slide, our construction contractors may not always appreciate the finer points of traffic management, the safety side of it. their focus is getting the job done, getting in, out, getting it done as quickly. And so, and they are passing that on to the traffic management company. And therefore, we need to make sure that that isn't the case, but also as road safety auditors, we are picking up those finer points, that they haven't been lost in interpretation. They haven't been lost in the way the site has been set up. We've got to check that the standard arrangement are applied for consistency. And this is the great thing about this Austroads product, is that if you're going through a site in Bendigo or Ballina, it should be the same. If there's a worker symbolic, we want to see workers. I know we won't always be able to see them. They could be hidden behind a bridge barrier or in a culvert, but if there's a worker symbolic sign up, we need to be actively working at that site. As I said, you might be able to see them, but we've got to be seen as actively at that site. And as soon as we finish with that site, we may have some loose material alike, but that worker symbolic sign has to come down. Far too often we see that left up 24/7, and drivers and road users become oblivious to that site and or that sign. And so it's so important that we have these in operations, out of operation signing arrangements, and they meet the requirements for the safety needs of the road users. To access whether standard arrangements are adequate for a particular conditions, why are we doing it? To avoid conflicting messages from our permanent and temporary, and that's what we had in that previous slide. Signs and line marking. Line marking is a big one. We've got to make sure if we're blacking it out for the change conditions, that blacked out area doesn't become worn off or in wet or at night time. It sometimes can be difficult to distinguish between what's been blacked out and what's the non-permanent line marking that's been provided, the temporary line marking that's been provided. We've got to check that the signs are used for their correct purposes. Far too often you'll see prepare to stop, and it won't be associated with a traffic controller. Traffic management companies are using that sign just to probably try and get a message to the travelling public or the road users that, oh yeah, you might have to stop. There might be, or just to get their attention to slow down. We need to use signs for their correct purposes. If you've got traffic controllers in place, you've got to use the traffic controller symbol, and you've got to have that prepare to stop sign. And I'll pose a question to the group. What speed must you have the traffic slowed down to if you're using traffic controllers? Because that has changed in recent years.
We're getting a bit of a range there. Most coming in at 40, we've got a few 60s and a 25. And
do we have South Australians on board, Ken?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And that will be where they're sitting, which is their default, which is great. But certainly for the documented, it needs to be 40, at least 40 or lower. That's the speed for using traffic controllers. And look at there's a real push within industry at the moment to not get rid of traffic controllers, but actually get traffic controllers off the road. That we have devices in place. That time's going quicker. I better keep moving. They're looking at boom barriers that are operated by a traffic controller that's standing off the road. Portable traffic signals that are remotely controlled by the traffic controller. It still has that. If you get queue build-ups, you're not just relying on fixed time operational traffic signals, temporary traffic signals. You're actually looking at the build-up. They're managed by traffic controllers, and they're changed to based on the build-up of traffic on either end of the job. So on the higher speed, higher volume roads, there is certainly a push to try and lessen the use of traffic controllers in those situations. to provide safety for works personnel and the travelling public, and to ensure any connection or crossing point for works traffic and public traffic is safe. You see it a lot in the city, that there's a lot of construction going on in that city area, and pedestrian points have been cut off, and really there hasn't been anything given for a new crossing point. Those sites where they do, they might put a traffic controller in place, they might put some temporary ramps in place, so if you're wheelchairs, prams, it's easier for you to cross. So because of those ramps, you haven't got the sharp B type curbing. So it's important that we do have that connectivity in place to ensure that we can do it safely if those normal crossing points have been closed. And point in is this one. It was just probably a cracked area on their footpath. They're replacing it. They've excavated. This photo was taken at 6, 7 o'clock at night. It was just a side road in Geelong, but anybody using this footpath, they're actually forced out onto the road. We could have put in place a temporary footpath, whether it be crushed rock, so it's a transition. They don't have to go off the footpath, but the next day when we're putting in the concrete, fast setting concrete, have a traffic controller in place to help people get around this site. It could have been managed a lot better than just putting up bunting and leaving all the pedestrians to their own devices to get around it.
Tony, a question's come in. So if we are not certified in traffic management, it would be difficult to do a road safety audit specifying that a traffic management plan is not to code. Can we elaborate on that? Well, you certainly don't need to have that traffic management certification to do road safety audits on those, but it certainly helps to have good knowledge of that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No, you don't have to be certified. You don't have to have a traffic controller's ticket or an implementation or a designer's qualification to undertake a road safety audit. You need to have your RSA accreditation, and you need, if you're undertaking the audit yourself, you certainly have to be a senior road safety auditor. And Ken, I don't know whether you've got to that sort of stage of this training session of explaining the processes.
Not yet. That's for a later module.
Yeah. So, and I'll let Ken go into that detail. But yes, as a road safety auditor, you should understand the codes and the compliance documents. But no, you don't have to have that certification to undertake the road safety audit. You need the road safety audit certification.
That's right.
And particularly in your area of prior to becoming that senior, and I'll probably get into Ken's space, you need to have shadowed with a senior road safety auditor in this particular case, construction sites. Good question. I reckon that's the first time we've had that one. Ken, good question. And this one was the non-compliant signing. I gather the sign company thought, well, all roadwork signing is predominantly black writing on yellow background. Let's use that for our portable traffic signals. No, these are regulatory devices. You need a memorandum of authorisation to use these devices at your roadworks. And so therefore it should be the red writing on a white background. It's just making sure that, when you're doing your audit, that you get that compliance of your signing and devices. What have I got, Ken? Is it half past, or have I got a little bit past that? So
you got a bit past that, Tony. You can go another 10 minutes if you like. Yep.
Thank you. So very quickly, and this might be a very quick question. What's the difference between these two stop signs apart from shape? This will be our last chocolate, Ken.
Okay. So I've got some initial ones. I think you mean for the for a driver approaching these.
Yeah, a driver approaching that. Yes. Sorry.
So we've got some people defining that one is held by a person, or one's a sign and one's a baton. We've got some
wanting a bit more info.
Yeah. Fixed location, variable location, color and font, but I don't think that's the one we're looking for. Yeah, what are your regulatory requirements around these, I think, Mike?
Yeah, that's maybe we'll go a little bit deeper.
Stephen, I think, has got what's looking pretty good. Stop for 3 seconds versus stop and hold.
I think probably close enough.
Yeah.
And this is going back to my really early days working for Vic Roads. I spent 6 months as a license tester. The 3 seconds is a good rule to work to, but you just have to bring the vehicle to a stop. That's with the octagonal one. Yes, you must stop as a driver. Check that it's clear of vehicles, and then you can proceed. Whereas the round one, it's if it's displayed in your direction, then you must remain stopped until it's no longer displayed, or you're given the direction by the traffic controller. And the people who said one was handheld and one is fixed were also correct. But yeah, the round one, the handheld, if you're directed by the traffic controller to proceed, then you may proceed. So and that's the difference. So yeah, but it probably is a very good habit. And it's so often you see now that people come up to a stop sign, yeah, they'll check that nothing's coming, but they don't stop. And by law, you need to bring your vehicle to a complete stop, and then you move on once it's safe. And look, with the round one, certainly as a driver, we're not aware of what potentially could be up ahead. A grader might be ready to pull out, and so that's why the vehicles are stopped. It may look clear to us, but certainly there could be other reasons why you need to remain stopped until you're told to move on. So, and that's the difference. So again, if you see the one on the left, the octagonal one being displayed or being used by a traffic controller, that would be a big no-no, and there would need to be a swift change in the stop sign being used. And unfortunately, I have seen it. And unfortunately, currently there's a traffic management company advertising traffic controller courses, and on their advertising, they've got a traffic controller using the wrong sign, which is very disappointing. And I actually got to the stage where I wrote an email to that company, and they said they'd take your photos down. But I still see they're still being used. Anyway, that's my little gripe for the day. I think we've covered that off well enough. But yeah, that's the type of traffic controller we need. They've got their high vis clothing on. The stop sign is in good condition. And the only time a traffic controller should be on the road, they don't have to be, is when they have the first vehicle is stopped. That's the only time a traffic controller should operate, be on the road. Otherwise, all other times they should be on the shoulder. You see traffic controllers operating from the opposite side and working, well, probably more in the middle of the road. You're just placing yourself in an environment that you've got to watch out for the traffic coming the other way. And I just can't see why they would choose to do that. So another good point as a road safety auditor, if they've got traffic controllers, just observe those for 5 or so minutes, just to make sure they're operating in a safe manner. So when to audit, and this is a really good depiction that we look at the different stages. We can review the plans and guidance schemes. We understand that what is being proposed, and it really is important that if you're asked to do a desktop, that you understand the site. So you to go out and do your site inspection, both day and night, will help you with undertaking that desktop review. And again, moving into when it's been implemented, inspection day and night, and certainly, if there's been any major changes as well, again, let's get an audit in place. And, again, pushing that we should do both day and night for, that in the early stages, if there's been those major changes, that we understand what the site looks like, in its operational state, but also when everybody's left site, and especially at that night time, is it still operating in the way that ensures the safety of everyone. Common issues, advanced warning. We talk about, in our own lives that we all have effective communication skills. It's so important that, that our communication to the road users is important, that we communicate that there's something coming up. There's advance warning that, it might be a variable message sign. It might be, we've got the sign roadworks 2K ahead. It's that advance warning, but then you've got your speed management. If we're slowing down to 40K an hour, we have those buffers in place, or the advanced 60s or the advanced 40s ahead, that we have that advance warning, and we have the traffic understanding and compliance to ensure that they've met those requirements under the advance warning. The proposed speed limits, let's make sure there's no conflicting signs within our site, within our signs that, I've seen them even set up the return speed as the introduction speed. They've just put the wrong in their variable message frames. We just make sure that we're getting our speeds correct. Is the standards, the signs that's been designed for the site, is it appropriate for the site? Great Ocean Road is a great example, the Great Alpine Road, a lot of crest curves and whatnot. So has the site been set up to allow for those environments, to give that advance warning that workers might be just over a crest or around a curve? Again, the conflicts between our permanent and temporary signing and devices have been managed. The aspects of the layout or devices could be misread by the road users. The likelihood of mud and dust on our signs obscuring our devices. The barriers. It's a really good question as an auditor. Have these barriers been installed as per the manufacturer's specification, and are they meeting the current Department of Transport standards? And those standards are updated quite regularly, and I think, Ken, you may supply those, or at least a link to the current barriers that are acceptable in the industry.
I'll pop a link to that, in the learning management system.
Yep. Thanks, Ken. And again, and it was really good early on in the presentation that we looked at looking after our pedestrians, and including the less agile, including the visually impaired, especially, and again, all pedestrians. We have children, we have people with prams, making sure that we are managing those pedestrians so that their safety isn't being compromised. The cyclists, we often forget that you get a large rock as the pavement for the cyclist to use. They're going to blow tyres, so we want to make sure it's smooth and doesn't have that real loose material where they're going to either potentially fall off or blow their tyres. So we need to make sure that all those types of provisions are being managed, and those conflict points are being managed also. Look, I'll finish off here, and Ken's going to go into these lists a bit later. Well, I think it's his next session. But in the Road Safety Audit Manual, the Austroads Manual, there's these. Well, they've changed from checklist to prompt list. just as little prompters. This isn't the entire list of things you should be looking at, but they just give you little reminders of what you should be looking at. So they're great to take with you when you're undertaking the audit, but make sure that you are looking at that in its entirety, looking at all those safety issues, and are those safety concerns being managed, mitigated, and the like. So it's so important that we undertake our road safety audit construction site with that open set of eyes. And the other one I should have mentioned earlier is you need that independency. If you're undertaking a road safety audit, you need to be independent of that particular site. You can't have I suppose, like a project manager of looking after a construction site shouldn't undertake a road safety audit. They need to make sure their sites are managed safely, but that independency is part of the road safety audit process. I'll leave it there, Ken. Thank you.
Beautifully done, Tony. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Lots of good interaction from the group. No additional questions at this stage, but I'll be sure to answer or pass on any questions. And yeah, we thank you for your time, Tony.
Appreciate that, Ken. And you've got some greater interaction with the screen now. That's good. I'm getting you a couple of thumbs up and whatnot. So that's appreciated. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Tony. And I will talk to you soon. There you go. People are celebrating and thumbs up. And yes, happy retirement is coming through. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
I will talk to you soon, Tony. Thank you.
Right.
I'm going to steal the
Thanks,
screen
everyone.
now. And I'm just going to share my screen. Have
you taken the screen back, Ken, have you?
Yeah, I've taken it. So you're free to carry on with your day. I'm just going to expand a little bit on Tony's prompt list discussion there. And he did a good job in just sort of recognizing that they are prompt lists only. They don't cover everything. And the most recent update to the Australia's Guide to Road Safety Part 6 has done an updated set of prompt lists. And they start with this, what we call the front loading questions. And they're a bit about getting context around the project or the site that you'll be looking at. And those are not something that you hand in. You simply are sort of adding these to help you through this process of auditing. So there's no requirement to use it. It's just there as something that'll help guide your thinking. So start in these front loading questions, and then they move into these specific list of questions that help you think of stuff. And they're into columns of the feasibility, preliminary design, detailed design, pre-opening, and existing road stuff. And they've got little squares so you can sort of pick ones that might be relevant. Now, I do want to remind you that these are trying to cover off every road environment out there. So there's a lot of stuff that for your particular site, whichever audit you're doing, won't be relevant. And that they don't cover off everything, but they really do help to get you thinking. And they're good for people sort of new to auditing, so they're thinking broadly across a whole lot of things. And as you get more and more experience with auditing, you rely on these less and less, I suppose. Thought starters only. Your responsibility is to stand back and think about the scheme holistically and all the different things that could pop up. Many will be not applicable, as I just said, and you do not submit the prompt lists, the checklists, or anything like that with your road safety audit report. They're just there to help your thinking. And that it is intentional change from checklist to prompt list in the terminology used in the recent guide in order to reinforce that it's not like you just use this, check things off, audit done. They're just prompting thinking. So that's all I wanted to say on prompt list, but I'm happy to take any questions anybody has on that as I swap over to the learning management system. Okay, well, I'm going to now sort of talk you through the assignment you're going to have at this session, and then point you at, or I'll just take you through what you've got to do at the end of this session. So we're down here in module 3 in the learning management system, and thank you to everybody who's sort of keeping up to date with the quizzes and popped in their assignments. So there is a quiz at the end of this one, just like the others. But then you'll see under here, there's this writing road safety audit findings. So we'll click on that, and you won't see this, but you'll see 3 documents there, a Word document and 2 PDFs. Okay, and so what we've got here is the PDF is of a design. And you can see here, that's a good one. The design is taking an existing roundabout, oval-shaped roundabout, and they plan to turn this into a signalized intersection. And so the black lines are what they're planning to build. That's what will be built in the future. Okay, the green lines there are what's currently there, what exists at the moment. So your job is going to be to find things in the proposed design that you believe could present death or serious injury or other injury to the traveling public. Okay, so you're not looking at the roundabout. You're imagining the future where that roundabout is gone and this is a set of traffic signals. Okay, so you're going to get this and you're going to have a look at it. Now, some people will be very comfortable, very happy looking at this. They'll understand what's going on. Some of you who don't look at these types of drawings a lot will be sort of maybe taking quite a bit of time to work out what's going on. Remember, the black lines are what they're going to build. The green lines are the existing. The red lines are just services and things. You can pretty much ignore those to a degree. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Does the roundabout currently exist? Yes, it does. And in fact, so the roundabout's there. It's going to get removed, and traffic signal, a signalized intersection, will be built. Now you are auditing this future scenario, okay? But what you might do is look at the surrounding road environment and the area to understand and imagine how it will be used in the future when it's signalized. And so, yeah, because this is just a bit of practice and a bit of a mock exercise, instead of sending you all out to the site, and some of you are in different states and the like, we've got some footage from the existing condition, okay? And we've put it into this second PDF, and you can click on any of the sites there, and what it will do is open up a YouTube. Oh, we get some ads. It'll open up a YouTube, which will then give you the ability to be at the site. And we've got 360-degree footage, so you can just scroll around. Now, we did pop some VR-style goggles into your pack. So if you want to play this on your phone and put your phone into those goggles, you can actually move your head around, and it's kind of a bit of fun, like you're out there on site. Little tip here is, if you want to get it crisp and clear, you up your quality right up to the highest there, and that will give you a really crisp, clear image. I won't do it now because we're trying to make sure the streaming continues, but that's how you can do it. Now, as I say, and I'm really just going to restate this over and over again here, is that you are not finding issues with this existing roundabout. You are looking for issues when they converted to a set of traffic signals. That's what you're auditing. But you're looking at the different bits of the network for things like, well, how does it operate? Where are pedestrians crossing? What's the surrounding land use? And then imagining, oh, okay, I see they're sort of coming down a hill here. I wonder where that goes. Okay, there's some shops there. I wonder how people are crossing the road there and what and the like. So you'll be thinking about what's currently there in order to imagine the future. You'll also be thinking about things in the design that you might have concerns with. And what we want you to do then is go to this Word document. So you'll download the Word document, and I did that before just to get us ready. And we've got some specific instructions for you, and it says, use the 2 attached documents to get some thinking. Here are your tasks, stepped out for you. Look at the 360, so review the designs, look at the 360-degree footage, and then we want you to find 2 road safety issues, only 2, with the proposed design, the proposal, not what's currently there. Or it might currently be there and remain, and you're concerned about it. Then write up the 2 findings using the tables we've got in the below, risk rate it, make recommendations, and then we're going to try to get you into this idea of categorizing recommendations, which I talked you through in module 1, and it might be a little bit hard to remember. This is good for some practice. And we want you to PDF it and upload it to the learning management system. Some tips here. Visualize the new design. Audit what's going to be built, not what is currently there. Put yourselves in the shoes of all road users, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles. Imagine how they make different moves. The real design is not fabricated. We haven't planted issues in there to test you or anything like that. So it's a real design. There should be plenty there to report on. But of course, if you're having any trouble, get in contact. We've given you an example on page 2 from a different site, but so you can see what we're expecting you to come back with. And if you can't find any issues yet, just get in contact. We can give you some hints. Here's your risk matrix. Remember, you're going to go think about how often do I think this crash is going to happen that I'm concerned with? How bad is it going to be? That's the resulting risk. And here's our example. Okay, you can see it's been written up. Use the formula or the recipe that I talked about. What's the issue? Okay, what's the crash that could happen? What are any risk factors? Are there any standards and guidelines that are relevant to put in there? That's an optional. What's the risk rating? Using the risk table here. What's the recommendation? And then categorizing it into primary, which are your things that virtually eliminate death and serious injury associated with that crash type, virtually eliminate, versus supporting, which are good road safety things, opening up sightlines and these sort of things. But we know still with humans' mistakes, we can expect that some level of death or serious injury may still occur. So you're going to do these ones. Write it all in there, put a snip from the design or a snip from the existing conditions, put your risk rating in, put your recommendation, categorize it, leave these blank because that's, convention is to remind whoever would receive an audit report to do something with it. But we've put it in there just for consistency that you're used to seeing this. So write 2 of those only. If you write 20 findings, we're only going to read the first 2. So, you're wasting your time really on that. This is not an exercise in trying to find every issue. This is an exercise in finding some issues and appropriately writing them up, getting you practice writing. You will predominantly be marked on your ability to write up a finding in that model that I told you in module 1 with the issue, the crash, the risks, any standards and guidelines if applicable, putting a snip in there, be clear and to demonstrate it, or a photo from the site, putting a risk rating in, writing a recommendation and categorizing. I mean, they're the marking aspects of it. You know, the fact that you may not have picked the highest risk thing in the design, that's okay. We like you to have a look at it, and there's some things in there we think are some reasonably significant issues, but we just want you to be identifying things, risk rating them, and presenting them well. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I will, of course, happily take questions, meet with people to help out, but hopefully this won't take you too long. There was a due date. Sorry, I'm just going to jump back onto here. Yeah, so we've got Tuesday, the 6th of December as the due date on this. Now, it's really good to get this done before then, or before you're onto your actual next audit, which is very similar. It's just a site you'll be able to go to, and you've got a bit more documentation to do. But if you've missed the concept, or you're getting things wrong, we want to provide you that feedback, help you, get you calibrated in how this works for your next assignment. Okay, question in here from Joseph is, once the assignment's finished, will there be discussion about other issues identified? If we have time in the final session, I will happily do that. We usually do have some time extra, so I can talk to what others identified, but some of the issues that we saw. But hopefully, some of the key points that we've been talking about: pedestrian desire lines, stand-up angles, see-through effects, connectivity, thinking about people from the buses and where buses will stop, and sight lines and these sorts of things. All of that sort of stuff. Hopefully, you'll be able to identify a few things that may present death and serious injury for the community once that is built into a signalized intersection. Just to double check, is the orange contours the existing or design? I believe it's the existing. That's probably, there's plenty, I think, of issues to find where you're not into that level of precision of detail, but it's a fair question to ask. Great. Okay. Well, as always, get in contact if you've got any questions. Thank you for your wonderful input today. There's Tony's longer version if you want to delve further into temporary traffic management. Reach out if you've got any questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you a couple of minutes before the next session for some trivia, and enjoy. Bye.